myself a note. Great.
Thank
Hi,
you.
everyone. Thanks so much for coming to our workshop. And if you're watching, thanks for doing that, for joining. We'll make sure you have everything you need to be able to participate in today's session. So today we're going to talk about executive functions. We're going to talk specifically about the role of executive functions in adolescence, how that impacts literacy development, and then we'll give you some tools to be able to support your young people and the folks that you work with. So before we jump in, want you to think of 1 to 3 teachers or teams or community partners or parent volunteers that you're working with to promote literacy in your context. So bring those people to the forefront. And Gretchen, can you just say a few words about why we chose to create this session to focus on community schools?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the Center for Whole Child Education, we have our hands in many projects across the state. And what we are trying to do is help people understand how they impact each other. This session, although will be completely wonderful for anybody who's interested in executive functions in adolescence, has a tiny bit of a community school spin. And one of the reasons that we've listed so many different people on this slide is to really acknowledge that in a community school, you are leveraging not just the educators and leaders in the school, but also your community partners and parent volunteers and others who you are probably leveraging to increase your chances of hitting your literacy goals. So Jasmine will stop every now and then and throw the mic to me, and I will be your community school angel on your left shoulder, asking you to think about how this might apply if you are in the community school context. Thanks, Jazz.
Perfect. Thanks, Gretchen. We know that California has, a really incredible community school initiative. And like Gretchen said, the things that we're talking about today will support any educator at any school in California because we all are supporting improved literacy outcomes for our young people. So let's dive right into executive functions. We hope that this information today is helpful for you as a learner because we're all lifelong learners and that you can share with the other adults that you support so that they get to also understand their executive functions and what that looks like in their own role, and then tools to support adolescents so that they themselves can understand what their own executive functions look like and how they can intentionally support those skills and build them in service of literacy. So you see the arc where we're going there. Okay, so some of you may have seen this video, Center on the Developing Child. We'll share it. We're going to watch a few minutes.
Science tells us that brains, minds, are built, not born. And at the center of this dynamic architecture are a set of skills called executive function and self-regulation.
Children's self-regulation and executive function are key ingredients in their lifetime performance. It's not just about learning language or learning numbers or learning colors. We have to be able to work effectively with others, with distractions, with multiple demands. These actually are skills that contribute to the productivity of the American workforce.
Just look at your shapes. What should you have done next?
Educators, I think, are looking for just this sort of thing. And when we describe what we mean by executive function, they say, yes, that's it. That's exactly, the problem. These kids, they can tell me these rules, but they can't actually use them.
What's this? A toolbox.
A toolbox.
What is executive function?
Safety goggles.
Safety goggles. Probably the best way to think about it is sort of like an air traffic control system in the brain. Just like an air traffic control system has to manage lots of airplanes going on lots of runways and really exquisite timing and so on. A child has to manage a lot of information and avoid distractions. We really think of it as involving working memory and inhibitory control and mental flexibility.
Take a situation where a child is having to take turns. So first of all, the child has to have inhibitory control. The child has to be able to stop whatever he or she is doing and let the other child take a turn.
Cute.
But when it's your turn again, you also have to remember what it is you're supposed to be doing. So that pulls on working memory. If the children who are taking the turns after you do something unpredictable, you have to be able to adjust what you're going to do next. And that requires mental flexibility. Children who are struggling with these capacities often look like children who just aren't paying attention, or children who are deliberately not controlling themselves.
If you don't have self-regulation, you act out and the teacher puts you in timeout, and so then you miss part of the learning that's going on, and then you are more upset because you're behind, and so you act out, and so you get this downward spiral.
How does executive function develop?
6, 7, 7, and plus 4.
In little children, and even, in the infant and toddler years, you begin to see the roots of executive functioning skills. What's going on in our brains is unbelievably intricate and complicated.
The prefrontal cortex, or the front third of the brain, is important for executive function. But it's more than just prefrontal cortex. This region doesn't act alone. It's involved in controlling your behavior through its interactions with all other parts of the brain. The brain goes from a situation where you've got nearest neurons communicating very strongly with each other and ignoring the rest of the brain, to these widespread networks that are connecting these different areas.
Okay, I'm going to pause right there. We'll share the entire video for future use, but anything resonating with you from that video, you can come off of mute or put it in the chat. Think for us, it was what they said about the brain's air traffic control system. That was a really good visual for us. Think of all of the things that are happening in that panel with the lights and the switches and all the things that have to be done at the same time. That's what our executive functions are like. We have to manage information, avoid distractions, adapt in the moment. And the second point that they made was that sometimes it feels like, those of us that were in the classroom, it feels like they're just not listening, or like they're choosing not to listen. And even the best, most well-intentioned, devoted teacher has had those thoughts. I know I had those thoughts. You're like, they just don't want to listen. It's like, no, now we know what's actually happening in their brain, and that what we can do as teachers is to support their executive functions. It's not that students are choosing to, quote unquote, be bad or choosing to be distracted. It's that so much is going on in their brains. Okay, so we're going to do a little deep dive into each of the core executive functions. So this is inhibitory control. We're all doing that right now. We have to control our attention, our behavior, our thoughts. We're like, okay, on the drive home, I have to stop and get gas, or, oh, should I check my email during this session? We're all using our inhibitory control throughout the workday, throughout our personal day. Just allows us to control our attention and do what's appropriate and needed. So think of adolescents, all of the personal dynamics that they're experiencing at school, the social dynamics, the classroom learning. They have to use a lot of their inhibitory control throughout the day. Then working memory helps us make sense of anything that's unfolding over time, requires us to hold things in mind and relate it to what comes later. And it's really necessary for making sense of written and spoken language. Maybe doing like math in your head requires working memory, mentally reordering things, considering alternatives. And working memory is not the same as short-term memory. Short-term memory just stores information instead of keeping it in mind and working with it. So, two different things there. And then cognitive flexibility, being able to change perspectives, change how we approach a problem, changing how we think about something, like that phrase of like thinking outside the box. And then being flexible enough to adjust to change demands or priorities. So think of our adolescents and as they change classroom periods, like changing to different teachers' rules, different, social pressures and different subjects. Um, and when a student isn't grasping something, we sometimes think like, oh, if only this student could do it. If only they could grasp like the lesson I spent so much time preparing. But we could be flexible. We could use our cognitive flexibility and think, what might I, the teacher, do differently? How can I present the material differently? How can I word the question differently so that this young person can succeed? And there is a lot of overlap between cognitive flexibility and creativity and task switching. It's the opposite of rigidity. Sometimes it's called flexible thinking or thinking outside the box. So these three core executive functions allow for these more complex skills: self-monitoring, organizing, planning, reasoning. And executive functions, a note at the bottom. It's not just about being like type A or being organized. It's these complex skills that we are combining to accomplish higher order thinking and skills. So as you can see in this graph, executive functions develops from early childhood through young adulthood. So these circuits in the brain, they're refined and they're made more efficient during adolescence into our early adult years. So I'm going to pause there. Any questions about executive functions so far, or those three core executive functions? Anything that's surprising you?
I'm watching the teeny tiny bit of decline around the years I am right now. And it's making me feel a little bit better about my organization and my inhibitory control. Thank you.
Yes, of course. I think you are very organized as your colleague, I will say. Okay, so what do these look like? So we're going to work together on these. So come off of on camera if you can. See, some of you already are. Christina, yeah, from 4 to 6. I have a 4-year-old. Isn't that amazing? I'm like, why is he so sleepy after preschool? He just played all day, but so much is going on in that brain. Okay, so we're going to do some tasks together so we can better understand our own executive functions. And then I encourage you to share these tasks with your team members, with folks that you coach, maybe during a PD. So here we go. Are you ready? We're going to come off of mute if you can, if you're in a safe space. And you're going to say the color, not the word. Go for it.
Green.
Green.
Color, not the word.
Purple.
Red.
Yes,
Orange,
I know.
red.
And think of our executive functions at 4 p.m. on the first Monday back out of school. We're in probably a bit of a decline from where we were at 8 a.m. this morning. Okay, say the color.
Green.
Say the color.
Blue.
Blue. Oh, I almost said purple. Orange. Red.
Purple.
Purple.
Blue.
Okay, so which of our executive functions did we use?
I felt like I'd used my whole brain.
Three.
Inhibitory control. That's right. Our brain has to inhibit us from saying the word and focusing on the color. Okay, so in this task, you're going to see a set of numbers, and then after they disappear, You repeat the numbers in ascending order. So same, we're going to come off of mute, ascending order. Okay, here we go.
What? That was so fast.
Try. Can you do it? Can we do it?
Can you do it one more time?
You got it.
Thank you. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9.
I got 3, 4, 5, 6, 8,
6,
9.
8, 9.
There you
Yep.
go. You
There
guys
you
got
go.
it.
Stephanie got it. Melanie got it.
Oh.
Okay. Here we go again. Ascending order.
1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9.
Christina, that brain is sharp.
I had to really focus.
Yes.
Okay, and I
Repeat in my
know
head over and over.
I know it seems intense, but like we're adult educators and we have to tell ourselves, okay, you really have to focus on this task. And think of how many adolescents that we are working with that have that ability. Okay, I'm going into math. I know that I'm a developing mathematician. And so for this next 50-minute chunk, I'm going to have to really focus on what the teacher is saying and avoid distraction. And remember what we learned last week. Which one is this? Which executive function did we use?
I saw Christina say working memory. I read her lips.
Yes, you're right. We had to hold the numbers in our brain and put them in ascending order. Okay, this is a fun one. I really like this one. We're going to be asked to sort the playing cards into groups using any rule. So this is our first set. Sort the playing cards using any rule, and when you'd like, you can come off of mute and say what rule you used.
Shape.
Yep. Thanks, Noelle.
Colors.
Mm-hmm.
Number of objects.
Yep.
Odd or even.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think that one. That's true. Gretchen and I did this game at a conference a few years ago, and someone said right angles or no right angles. And we're like, okay, mathematician. Yes, right angles or no right angles. If I was teaching second grade, I can think of one of my students, Yolanda, and she would probably say the ones that look pretty and the ones that don't.
The ones that look like buttons on my game console and the ones that
Yes.
don't. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Anybody use a different rule? Like, did anybody sort with one rule, like your brain go to one rule and then switch to another rule? I know that my brain went to color before it went to shape. I don't know what that says about me.
I did color and then number
Oh,
and then shape, I guess.
okay. So this one was cognitive flexibility. We had to come up with one rule to sort the cards, then see the same cards and then change perspectives to find a different rule for the same set of cards. So we had to be flexible, try a new strategy to solve the problem in order to complete the task. And those of us that are leaders of educators, we can think sometimes we really ask for our grade level teams and our departments and our admin to really use cognitive flexibility, because I think that sometimes in school we're like, well, we've always done it like that. That's what we've always done. That's how it works. Or this team always does this and this team does this. And I think that there are times, especially times like now in education, where we know what our results are around literacy for third graders, for eighth graders, for 12th graders. And it might require us all as leaders in this space to use some cognitive flexibility and think, even though we've done this way for a really long time, it might be time to try something different. And that feels hard for folks. That feels hard. I'm a slow to change person. I'm like, no, but this is the rule and this is what we do. Um, and so that is just a truth I wanted to share of being a leader in this space and leading for literacy and leading to ensure that our young people have the literacy outcomes that they deserve to be lifelong learners.
And I'll just throw in the little community school nugget here, which is we're often asking people in community school contexts to open up their classrooms, right? To be thinking about how to invite in community assets, thinking about how to send students out of the classroom to work with adults in other contexts and having to prepare them for that. And so, really keeping top of mind what these executive functions are and how that's going to support students and teachers, honestly, working outside of our usual context. So, just my little community school nugget for you.
Thank you, Gretchen. Okay, so we gave you an overview of executive functions, and now we want to share a tool. We're going to do this together, and then you can share this with folks that you lead for. But in this tool, it's an executive function self-assessment. It helps adults reflect on their own executive function skills. So you have, we'll put this in the chat for you. You have like a prompt if it, at work or school, and then you can answer never challenging, sometimes challenging, often challenging, always challenging. So maybe choose 5 that you want to answer, and then we'll talk with each other about what we noticed about our own executive functions. So just take maybe 3 minutes to answer. I'll put some music on. Okay, anyone want to share their reflections? There was like an at work or school and then an at home. You can share like which you chose, anything you noticed about yourself. Whoever wants to jump in.
I can jump in. I'm I have less trouble with this at work than I do at home. I feel like I have fewer distractions. I'm more focused. Um I listen to other people better than I do at home with my family. Um I I can distract myself much more easily at home than I can at work. I feel like there's that culture of, the workplace that sort of keeps you on what you're supposed to be doing, keeps you focused, which is
Yes.
why working from home during COVID was so hard for me because I had to be so much more disciplined to go to an office in my house and get working. So
Oh, thanks for sharing. Yeah, working from home, I'm like, oh, but maybe I should just do those couple dishes. Or let me just like switch the laundry. Oh, but what? Someone just rang the doorbell. Lots of distractions at work from home. I'll say for me, I mentioned earlier, I'm like a slow to change person because I'm like, what's the plan here? What have we always done? Then when I became an administrator, I was like, this was um unbelievably challenging for me because every day there was changing circumstances for directions. I'm thinking of like November, December, where everyone's sick. There's 13 people out today. So what are we going to do with the children? And then after doing that for a few years, and then eventually supporting the principals as they were navigating this, I'm like, it feels so hard in the beginning, but you can do it every day. There's like the plumbing is out in the kinder bathrooms, or there's so many things that come up in school where we have to easily change to circumstances or direction. So, pre-teacher, probably very challenging. And after being in it for so long, it's like, never challenging. Oh, the power's out. That's happened before. This is what we do. There's a pigeon in the cafeteria. Oh, this is who we can call. Anyone else want to share the reflections? Matt, Stephanie, Gretchen, Noel?
I'll jump in. That's
Yes,
okay.
please.
Um, I I think for me it's Mrs. Both at home and at work is trying a different way to do things. I'm super just if then type of person, and it's hard for me. I always feel like I'm in a hurry. I have to get like mark off my list, get everything done, and so it's hard for me to pause and be creative about approaching a problem in a different way. And so I would really like to work on that.
Oh, great reflection. Noel?
Yeah, I can share too. I think it's at work, home, school. But I know I'm somebody who can't sustain attention for long periods of time. So I have to use like Pomodoro kind of techniques.
Mhm.
And like I'm very, very sure about like, okay, if I can finish this in 45 minutes. And when I finish that, then I can go on to this. So I really have to negotiate and kind of make sure that I know what has to get accomplished and prioritize those things. Um, but I think because I recognize that about myself, I can kind of monitor it. But
Mhm.
it's something I've always noticed even when I was, in school, high school, college also.
Yeah. Yeah, that understanding, that noticing in ourselves is huge. Yes, Gretchen.
I just heard that was reminding me, Noelle, of a video that we created with Edutopia about how learning happens, about prioritizing with students.
Yeah.
So, for instance, in an advisory or in a homeroom, having kids like list everything that they have coming due in the week and really getting thoughtful about what should we do first, what is going to require more attention, what can we kind of knock out, and sort of just like making visible that invisible work that we often assume kids are going to kind of pick up on, but
Yeah.
actually like making that very, very visible for them. So I love being reminded of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So in this tool that you can share with your family teams, with any folks in your community school that work with your community-based orgs, this is like a great activity to do as a team builder, as like a Friday reflection. There's a couple reflections questions at the end, like what's easiest for you? What's most challenging? What about your environment supports or hinders your executive function? So if you're in a leader space right now in your role, it would be great to know this kind of information about your staff. Like, okay, Gretchen might not be someone, if it's really challenging for Gretchen to resist distractions. If I know this about her, then I probably don't want to pop in her room at 7:45 and just be like, oh, I just wanted a quick thing. That's not probably something that's not supportive for me, her. Um, that that type of thing, just learning more about the folks that we're working with, and then being transparent and sharing our own reflections on our executive function. So this is a tool you can take, you can share with folks. So important for us as adults to do our own reflection, and to share that transparently with our teams, with our students, with the people we lead. So there's that tool. We're going to dive now into executive functions and literacy. So that's where we're going next. So here we go. So executive functions are part of this much broader set of skills that students need to be successful. And they're critical and intertwined with reading and writing skills. So we know about Scarborough's rope, and here's an updated model that has executive function intertwined. So we're familiar with the rope of literacy development, but now researchers have added executive function because it's so crucial to supporting and moderating literacy development, alongside, of course, all of the components of language comprehension and word recognition. Here's a quote from Learning Disabilities Association of America that you can read, but I want to highlight this, this first part. Reading equals hard mental work. Executive functions integrates and synchronizes the many sub-processes involved in reading. So the brain was not wired for print. The brain was not created with the ability to learn to read. This is like a human invention, and the brain has to rewire itself to be able to learn how to read. So that's incredibly hard work. We saw that image of the brain, the beginning, in the video in the beginning, and all of the networks across the brain are being used for reading. And here is just a small list of the interconnections and interdependencies between executive function and literacy skills. Executive functions affect students' abilities to do all of these things: monitor for errors in reading, disregard irrelevant information, shift from one literacy activity to another, complete their literacy assignments on time. So there are so many ways which our executive functions that we've been talking about impact our ability to read. Any here that are surprising for you? And then we're thinking specifically about adolescents. If we are still a developing reader, so not only do we have to think about in Scarborough's rope, that language comprehension and word recognition, but we also okay, when is this assignment due? How much time do I need? I know that I'm a slow reader and this will take me a long time to do, or I may need to read the text multiple times. So everything going on in young people's brains, so many things. So one click further into executive functions and adolescence. So we know that adolescence is this time of immense change in the brain. The connections in the brain are strengthened, and those that are not used are pruned away. And pathways in the brain, they become much more efficient. And there's this layer of fat in the brain called myelin, and it actually insulates the connections that makes the signals of these pathways that are used much faster. So the brain is becoming so efficient, connections are being strengthened, and it's this rapid time of change, this rapid amount of change is happening in the prefrontal cortex. It's the part of the brain that controls the executive functions. And then this other area of the brain, also at this time of adolescence, is going through significant development, the amygdala. And the amygdala is what reacts to stress and emotional arousal. And these two regions affect one another. When the amygdala, the almond-shaped organ in the brain, is triggered by stress or intense emotion, it overrides the prefrontal cortex ability to do its job, which is regulate thoughts, emotions, behavior. So think back to that first video and what I said that resonated with me. It's like sometimes we think that students are choosing not to listen or choosing not to follow the task. But think about adolescents, think about what's happening in their brains and their bodies. And now we know that their amygdala which reacts to stress and emotional arousal, is actually overriding the prefrontal cortex. So, this regulating thoughts, emotions, and behavior. So, students are not actively choosing, it's these things that are happening in their brain on this neurobiological level. Okay, so question here. What stressors do the teachers you support, what do they report are likely to show up during literacy? And how would that affect students' abilities to use their executive functions?
I'm thinking of a lot of things. I've recently been in some high school classrooms, and there are a few things that come up. One is students who arrive with sub-grade level reading levels, and there are a lot of them. And at high school level, they know that about themselves. They've probably been through various programs that are supposed to get them back on track, but here they are, still not able to access a grade level text. And so I feel like that would be a stressor that would go into like right at the beginning of any task. They'd be stressed about that. Another thing that I'm hearing from teachers is lots of behaviors in those middle school and high school classrooms, especially in like the not the honors classes. We and the school it's the college prep, but really it's everybody, maybe it's opportunity mixed in with everybody who couldn't do honors. And I think for those who are trying, and maybe for those who are doing the behaviors, those behaviors are so stressful for the kids, not just for the teachers. And being in that environment can make it almost impossible to focus and learn.
Yes, because if we go back to this image, right, the amygdala that's triggered by stress and emotion then is overriding the prefrontal cortex, which we need to regulate our thoughts, emotions, behavior to do that hard mental work of reading. Melanie, Matt, Noel, anybody else, any other stressors that are coming up?
I mean, I think I agree with Stephanie. I think what I'm hearing from our middle schools um, is because they're lacking in foundational skills and they can't access the grade level content. What they're noticing is they're kind of attributing behavior to that as an avoidance behavior. Like, I would rather save face than have to read out loud or recognize that I don't have any comprehension of what we are, reading here in this moment. So I feel like they all kind of build on each other. I think it's without them having the ability to decode, then they're lacking in the comprehension. And I think just the awareness of that for our, upper elementary and secondary students who were in, K and one during COVID, who really did miss a lot. And, if it wasn't addressed immediately, they're the ones who are kind of moving forward in the grades with like significant gaps.
Yes.
And I think that just having the reason I'm here today also is just I'm working with some school districts on, how they can address those concerns with adolescents in a way that's, respectful and mindful of the fact it's not the same teaching reading to adolescents. So any tricks, tips, helpful ways of being it's important to me because those students really do recognize where they are. And it is really a hard experience to be in those classes when you know that you are so far behind.
Yes, absolutely. Matt, I'm wondering if you can share with Noel the reading foundational skills resources from Project Arise so that Noel can share with your middle school teams the courses that we talked about. And there's many resources through Rise. Matt, you go ahead.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, for sure. This is really timely thinking about it too, because we just had at another session, Jasmine, you're familiar with this, a district who's reporting exactly what was just discussed, right? Like students are really struggling with foundational word recognition skills. And as such, they're seeing lots and lots of things happening in their classroom, and teachers are like, what do we do? So yes, I will share those. I think we can, I'll share them in the chat right now, but we think we can also put them in the follow up email and on the one pager.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Noelle and then Stephanie, of course, and anyone watching, if you are finding yourself in the same predicament, this is what part of Arise is. We have all of these free resources for any California educator, because we know that this is what's been happening, right? Like this learning to read, these foundational skills are not available to grade 5 and above. And then we're asking, because of where, our results are and our young people are, we're asking these teachers of grades 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to teach kids to read. And Gretchen is a high school teacher. She can, has spoken to this. She's no experience with phonics or decoding. Or go ahead, Gretchen.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I was a high school English teacher, and my assumption was that kids came in knowing how to read. And I did not know how how to turn non-readers into readers, except to, try to get them hooked into a story, right? So then they would be, I would have hoped, been excited and wanted to read. But did I know how to help them translate words on a page to meaning? That was not something I was taught as a secondary teacher. So that's hard. And one of the things that Project Arise does is really give you the skills and information as a secondary teacher about, I never knew what Scarborough's rope was. This is, I'm still learning those pieces. That's a mystery to me.
Yes. Thank you, Gretchen. And in this final year of Arise, we've really are focusing on supporting adolescent literacy, because we're finding, not just from you all, but from rural Northern California to San Diego, that so many adolescent leaders are in the same space. They're looking for a place to build some community with other folks that are supporting adolescent literacy, because there isn't too much and there aren't many resources. There isn't funding. So Matt will share resources, and then we are happy anytime to chat with you one-on-one. Not in this workshop, we can talk one-on-one about what you need, what's available through Project Arise, what we can give you and orient you. So just wanted to plug all of these amazing foundational things, foundational skills resources. So thank you, Noelle, for sharing so transparently with us. Okay, so what does this mean? How do we support executive functions in adolescence? If we know what executive functions are, if we know we have to build awareness of what they are, we have to support the development of them in order to support literacy. Well, what does that look like?
It's easy to write off teenagers as lazy, forgetful, or disengaged, but when we support them in aligning their thoughts and behaviors with their goals, we help them meet success in school now and in careers and life later. Adolescence is a critical time for the development of executive function skills. In middle and high school, when switching classes and managing workloads from several teachers becomes the norm, some students may struggle. Proficiency in these skills can vary greatly from student to student. This is developmentally normal, and factors like ADHD, stress, and boredom can impair executive functioning. But within this struggle lies an excellent opportunity to make a lifelong impact, since we know that executive functioning is a strong indicator of future success. Increasingly, research is zeroing in on tools that teens and teachers can use to strengthen executive function. A trove of new research suggests that when students are routinely given time to write or speak about the ways they might improve their study habits, ace an upcoming test, or manage their social anxiety, they feel a deeper sense of belonging, attend school more frequently, and improve their academic performance. Giving students tools like calendars, trackers, and priority lists won't work if the students aren't motivated to use them. So integrate planning tools into your daily routine, or even ask students to submit them for credit, and assign longer projects that require careful planning. When teens provide advice about optimal study habits to their peers, they convince themselves and improve their own grades. Try breaking students into groups to discuss strategies for an upcoming test or presentation, or ask them to write emails to their peers about how to manage their complex schedules. Purpose drives learning, but there's far too much emphasis placed on the teacher's role as inspirational leader. Research from 2014 reveals that when students do the work themselves, identifying real-world problems they're passionate about or imagining themselves in careers that can change the world, they improve their grades, attend and finish college at higher rates, and spend more time on challenging tasks. By helping students build a connection between school tasks and their personal goals, we can support them in developing the habit of using metacognitive strategies to accomplish longer-term achievement.
Okay, so they said dedicate time to it, make it indispensable, take their advice and connect learning and purpose. Are there any of these that you feel like you're already doing at your sites to support student executive functions, or is this sparking any new thinking for you?
Prior to what I'm doing now with community schools, I was a special education teacher, among other things. And I often had students that had specific goals in the area of executive functioning. So, dedicating time, but also explicitly teaching some strategies and skills can really help kids, a lot of kids that struggle in this area. And I worked primarily with elementary students, although my most recent position was high school age kids, and young adults. But they don't know what they don't know. They just know that they struggle, but they don't know where to even find tools or that there's strategies that can help. And so I think not just dedicating time, but like explicitly teaching some options, and then they can figure out which one works for them. I think makes a huge impact too.
Christina, great segue to some resources for action. So I know we've all been in PDs. We're like, yes, that's great. That's great. And the PD's over. So not here at the Center for Whole Child Education. So we give you the how. So here are some things you can do. So that executive function self-assessment. So there's a student version that you can use with your adolescent. So a great place to do this would be maybe advisory, or if you have a small group of kids that you're working, that literacy specialists are working with, anybody that pulls small groups, this would be like a great activity to do with them. Maybe do it multiple times and notice if there's any changes, and has those similar reflection questions at the bottom where so students can begin to, like Christina just said, know what they don't know, what's challenging for them, what are they good at, what is never challenging, what can they do right away, what feels easy and second nature to them. That awareness for them is key, especially because this is when their brain is really strengthening those connections. So if we are being intentional about supporting executive functions during this adolescent brain development time, then those connections can be really strengthened. And that will allow students to carry these skills with them throughout their learning, throughout their lifelong journey as a learner. So here is this assessment tool that we'll put in the chat. And again, I encourage you with adults, like do that at the adult self-assessment. Do that with each other. You're like, before you give it to kids, maybe we're going to be giving this to a small group of kids. And you can even just start with a small group or one grade homeroom or one literacy specialist and her groups. Do it with each other and then roll it out to kids. So you do that. And then here is, I love this. It's a strategy bank of things that educators can do, of what students can do to practice opportunities. So this is a resource that you can even just start with like one teacher team and say, okay, we are going to break down complex processes. What that is chunking information that we provide and breaking it down the process into steps. How is that building or supporting executive functions? That's reducing the demand on the working memory. So, as educators are doing a unit plan or a lesson plan, they can be intentional about these strategies that they're using that will build and support executive function. Are there any questions on these first two resources? So the first one's an assessment. This is strategies for supporting executive functions for adults to use with in their planning. And then here's a tool for students. So it's like Christina said, we want students to know what they don't know and know that they can intentionally build their executive functions. So here's a simple tool. It's called 54321. Purpose. In the busyness, we sometimes lose track of the present moment and how we're feeling. We can use a strategy to tune into our body and our surroundings. Find a space where you can find a few minutes undistracted by people or things. Breathe deeply and slowly and complete the following 5 steps. So we want students to know that they're in control of their own executive function and that they can do specific strategies to support their development. Any questions about those 3 tools? So just a quick reflection for you. How might you share these tools with educators? What challenges do you anticipate? What supports might you need from us? And where can you share these tools to raise awareness about executive functions? What are you thinking? How can these be helpful? Or what might you still need? What questions do you have?
I just want to say I appreciate so much the idea of I'm working with a school district, and when our first meeting, it was through differentiated assistance, but they're eligible for some of that because of their scores in language in English language arts and academics. But I think I appreciate so much the idea of having the staff, the teachers participate in just kind of acknowledging and reflecting on their own executive functioning, and then recognizing how that might also align with their students, because in our first meetings, a lot of the conversation was how apathetic students are right now, and how I won't use the word lazy, but a lot of the language was around like they just don't care. They don't, it really was so much more about will.
Yes.
And there was also, I think some of the grading was also based on that, was this idea that they just didn't want to try. And I think when you look through that survey and we start to recognize, how it impacts us and some of the same characteristics that we see in our students, I think we can have a lot of empathy about what these students are going through. And I think it just kind of humanizes all of us for a moment before we approach this. This is a challenge, and we need to like be really strategic about how we approach it. But I think it just kind of makes it a little more human. When I'm struggling to try to put numbers in order, I think I can really see students and thinking about all of the things they have to do in a day, and it just might give a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So feel free to take any of those activities that we did. We'll share the slides. So if you want to take those now and do them as an activity, you're totally welcome to.
One of the things I was thinking of is I think oftentimes teachers and educators were themselves good students and liked school. And so I think that a lot of the executive functioning requirements that we have to exist and be productive and successful students come as second nature to a lot of educators. So I think that really honing in on some of the things that seems that they should just be automatic. By high school, they should know how to do this. I shouldn't have to explain this to them. I think taking a step back and using something like that tool for students to self-assess and sharing that with their teachers or with the adults that they're working with, or even with one another for some self-awareness, I think that can really be eye-opening for educators, that it's not a will issue. They don't know, or this is something that they're struggling with. And if you want them to be able to read a science textbook, they aren't going to be able to do that if they don't understand that chunking information is a way to help them remember things. And I mean, it's like taking a step back and sort of taking yourself out of it for a minute and your own sort of assumptions about what a high school student should or shouldn't be, and really being open to, I mean, you really can't be a successful student if you're struggling at a high extent in executive functioning. You just can't do it. And we all want kids to be successful. Teachers want their kids to do well and feel good about themselves. So I think if they can take a step back and use some of these tools and do some of these activities for themselves, I think it could be really eye-opening and even take a little bit of that blame away from anybody in the room.
Mm-hmm. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Yeah. So often we ask young people to do things that we as adults even don't always do. So, yeah, you were so spot on. Okay, y'all. Couple things I want you to remember. Set of air, what are they? They're like a set of skills that are the brain's air traffic control system. These are the things they help us do. We need these executive functions for literacy skills. Executive functions can continue to develop in adolescence, and they're affected by stress. And a way that we can support our students' literacy, especially our adolescent students, is by scaffolding their executive functions and helping them manage stress. We gave you a couple tools to share with folks. We hope that this session was helpful. Please know that you have access to the courses. So there's a whole course that was written by our amazing colleague, Laura, Executive Functions and Literacy. I'll send a link out to that, but we'll be sending you the recording, the one pager. If you need a certificate of participation, we're happy to send that. We have a feedback survey Matt will share in the chat. You can also follow Project Arise on the socials, CCCOE Lit Project. You can also follow the center, so at Center for Whole Child Education. We'll put up all of our free resources, upcoming sessions, opportunities for support. Also want to make a plug for our LLN. So we have 3 more LLN sessions, Literacy Leadership Network. So if you know any leaders that are leading adolescent literacy that could be part of a community, I think we have about 11 folks, community schools coordinators, assistant soups, literacy specialists, assistant principals, and we're all coming together. We'll send this in the one pager. 3 more Thursdays between now and March, working on problems of practice and continuous improvement, talking about our own context and how we can support adolescent literacy. So you are definitely welcome to join. If you have any questions, we're here for you, but thank you all so much for joining us on this Monday. If you watch this recording, thanks for joining. We're here to answer any questions. And Noelle, please feel free to send Matt or I an email if you want more information on how to support with the foundational skills. We're happy to help. Thank you all so much. Have a beautiful evening. Take good care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, thank you.
Stop recording.